you kind of get used to, believe it or not, the president waking up at 2 a.m. and maybe he hasn't gone to bed yet, saying bad things about you. And I even have to check myself to make sure I don't get numb to that, because that's not okay.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Yasmin Vasugian. Today on the show, former FBI Director James Comey is just weeks away from his July 15th trial date, where he's going to face charges that he threatened the life of President Trump. Prosecutors say Comey made his alleged threat by posting an image of seashells spelling out 8647. He's among a group of President Trump's perceived political foes facing a slew of accusations and investigations, which are putting the historic independence and apolitical nature of the Department of Justice into question. Comey left the DOJ back in 2017, and since then has had a bit of a second career as a crime novelist. He's out with the fourth book in a series about a federal prosecutor, Nora Carlton, moving up the ranks as the U.S. Deputy Attorney for the Southern District of New York. So, does Comey still believe he can get a fair trial? And will Seashell-Gate feature in the next installment of his series? For that, I'm going to bring in former FBI Director James Comey. Welcome, Director Comey.
Great to be here.
Great to have you. So you've written another book, a legal thriller. It's called Red Verdict, the fourth in a series about a federal prosecutor. She's investigating a Russian-style hit on a weapons manufacturer. How close to home is this narrative, is this story that you've written?
Very close in a lot of different ways. The lead character, my protagonist, is a woman who's a federal prosecutor, inspired by my oldest daughter, who's a federal prosecutor until she was fired for having my last name last summer. And the topics are close to my life. I used to be the general counsel of the world's largest defense company. I also, as FBI director, spent a lot of time worrying about the Russian counterintelligence mission of the FBI. So it kind of brings together a lot of different parts of my life.
So how do you draw the line when you're writing? How do you draw the line between reality and not disclosing state secrets as former FBI director and federal prosecutor and the fiction you want to put on the page? Do you get caught up in that moment?
I do. My goal is to have it be as real as possible. And that's true in all my books. I want people who know the business to read it and say, yeah, that's what it feels like. That's what it sounds like. It's exciting in the way that he portrays it, but I also can't talk about the particulars of non-public things. But that's kind of easy because there's enough public that you can use in developing a storyline and keep the zeitgeist that you know from having worked there throughout the book, so it feels real.
So you said you don't want to necessarily talk about yourself. You don't like talking about yourself, but you are the former FBI director. You have been indicted by this administration, so we do need to talk about you a little bit here. You're writing books, as you mentioned. You're famously taking walks on beach as well.
Yeah, famously.
Sounds kind of peaceful. Sounds like a nice life.
Yes, it's
that
been a
you
great
have.
life.
Nice retirement.
Yes.
But I want to talk about one of those walks on the beach that you have taken. You posted a picture on Instagram of seashells arranged to spell 8647. And now you have been indicted by the DOJ, saying that the message represented a threat to the president's life. If this was book 5 in your series, what would be the title of that book?
Probably get rejected by your editor because they would say, look, it's fiction, but let's not lose our minds here, write something closer to reality. But I don't know what it would be.
Like this is too far from reality for us to publish it?
I think an editor would say that's such an odd story. You're supposed to be writing things based in reality. So maybe it'll be grounds for a broader array of fiction from me in the future. But I don't know what the title would be.
You posted that picture on Instagram. What did you think the reaction would be out there to that picture as a former FBI director, as a federal prosecutor? What did you perceive people to take from 8647 spelled out in seashells?
Yeah, I promised my lawyers and myself that I would abide the local court rules and not talk about the case. We'll have plenty to say in the courtroom, but I so respect the federal court system that I can't.
But I mean, putting up 8647, former FBI director, there's really nothing that you can share about your mindset at that point to say, this is what I was thinking. This is why I put it out there. This is what I thought people would think, and it's not what I meant. I mean, you've shared videos on there. What did you say in your video?
Well, I've talked about this a year ago when it first became public, when there wasn't a case pending. But with a case pending, it's frustrating for everybody, but I really have to stick to the local rules that I shouldn't talk about a case except in the courtroom.
It's not the first time that you've been indicted by this administration.
Right.
The first time was in September of last year when the DOJ accused you of lying under oath. A judge dismissed that, not based on the merits of the charges, but based on the appointment of Lindsay Halligan, then the former U.S. attorney in Eastern Virginia. Did you expect this second indictment when Todd Blanche was appointed as the acting attorney general, replacing then Attorney General Pam Bondi?
Well, I'm not going to talk about this second indictment. I didn't know what would follow. I understood from the news accounts that the president was frustrated that Pam Bondi's standards were too high and she wasn't moving fast enough against those he wanted targeted. And so I expected that there would be movement aimed at people like John Brennan or Adam Schiff or Senator Kelly or me, but I didn't know for sure.
So you expected the president to come for you again in a way?
Oh, sure. He's talked about it constantly.
You have called this indictment politically motivated. The president is going after his perceived political enemies, as you just mentioned. You're not the only one. The DOJ was known as an apolitical, though, independent agency historically. That is how the DOJ has been known in history. Some would argue that your decision in 2016, when you were FBI director, to break internal precedent and talk about an ongoing investigation accusing Hillary Clinton of mishandling classified emails just days before the 2016 election was the start of it, was the start of the politicization of the DOJ. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't agree, but I guess I understand why people would say that, but I really don't see that.
How come?
Well, I think the
How do you see it?
I see a group of people trying to act in a non-political way, consistent with the values of the Department of Justice, and stuck in a very difficult, almost an impossible situation, and choosing the option of transparency, which was most consistent with what's etched on the building. And so I understand a lot of concerns and frustrations, but I really don't think that was the start of some politicization of the department.
Even with breaking from the AG at that time back in 2016, you don't believe it was the beginning of the politicization of the department and breaking with precedent?
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I've heard people say it. They're thoughtful people, but I disagree.
Do you regret the decision?
No, I regret deeply being involved, but I've thought about the decision 1,000 times, and I think I chose the least bad option, even in hindsight.
What do you mean by saying that you regret being involved? In what way?
Oh my gosh, if I had a magic wand, I could go back and not have the FBI investigating the two candidates. Well, we weren't investigating Trump. We were investigating Trump associates in the summer of 2016. If I could, with a magic wand, not have the FBI involved in either of those cases, that would be wonderful. Can't change the past. We had what we had, and we did our best.
You had the top lawyer in this country, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, saying President Trump is, quote, the boss. He is acting as the president's attorney. The Supreme Court ruled that presidents have immunity for official acts while in office. When you look at all of these avenues together, when you put them all together, do you still believe that there is an independent judiciary in this country, the judiciary you're going to be facing if, in fact, this goes to trial?
Very much so. Yeah, I think it's what saved us in the fall of 2020 in the face of a tsunami of lies about the election, and it's saving us in all different kinds of ways now. The judiciary is the genius of our founders' design, that these are folks with life tenure who cannot lose their jobs for failing to be loyal, and the only thing they can lose is their well-earned reputation for integrity, and they're fiercely protective of that, no matter what president appointed them. So yes, I know the federal judiciary as an institution. It's where I've spent my entire career, and I have great confidence in it.
Even with so many rulings in favor of this current president, in which some legal experts would argue were in favor of the law, and the president was not on the side of the law, you still, even in that respect, believe in this system from Supreme Court on down.
I do. It's the rule of law. It's not the rule of me. Right, I don't get to be happy with every decision. No one should. The question when you look at a decision is regular order being followed? Are we doing things in the regular way based on facts and evidence and reasoning from precedent? Are they doing their best? And the answer is absolutely, even if I may disagree with a particular decision.
What is it like to be kind of, living this life of retirement, taking beach walks aside from the beach walk that we spoke about, writing books, and being persistently attacked by the commander-in-chief, arguably the most powerful man in the world, President Trump, walking down the street and knowing that everybody has an opinion about how you've handled various things in your career?
It's strange. You kind of get used to, believe it or not, the president waking up at 2 a.m. and maybe he hasn't gone to bed yet, saying bad things about you. And I even have to check myself to make sure I don't get numb to that, because that's not okay. He's not okay doing that sort of thing. But it's just something you kind of get used to. I am happiest when I am not recognized, when I am able to be a grandfather and an author and a husband walking with his spouse. And being a giraffe, that's hard for me because people recognize me.
Yeah.
But that'll fade too. I mean, we're probably 2.5 years away from you not recognizing me on the street, and that'll be a happy day.
Legal experts on both sides of the aisle have expressed skepticism about the charges that have been leveled against you. But as I mentioned, as I talk about the judiciary, federal judges have ruled in favor of the president in cases where experts have said the very same thing. Eileen Cannon in Florida, for instance, being one of them, dismissing the federal classified documents case against the president, saying special counsel Jack Smith was not appointed legally. If this goes to trial and you're found guilty, are you prepared for that judgment?
Sure, because I believe in the system, and then there would be appeals. The Jack Smith decision didn't get to be appealed because they ran out of time. But we have a system that I believe in, that district courts make decisions, courts of appeals make decisions on their work, and then the Supreme Court makes decisions about the courts of appeals. It works, and it has continued to work in this country.
So you still believe in the system?
I really do, yeah.
Former Director James Comey, thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
So life is getting a whole lot more expensive here in the U.S. Consumer prices rose last month at the fastest rate in nearly 3 years. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, inflation has surged to 3.8%. And American workers, they're feeling the burn, from grocery items to fuel prices. For the first time since 2023, consumer prices now outpace wage growth. This new economic data comes nearly 16 months into President Trump's second term. And while the president has argued prices at the pump and the checkout counter are just temporary pain points, is the American public still buying it? For this, I'm going to bring in NBC News chief business correspondent Christine Romans. Today was not a good day.
I don't like these comparisons. When we're reaching back to 2023 and 2022 for comparisons, that was an uncomfortable time in the American economy.
Super uncomfortable, because we were coming off of what was COVID, which was so dark when it came to our economy and a lot of other things, obviously, health-wise as well.
We reopened. And remember what happened?
Yeah.
It was just like this surge out of the gates, and you couldn't get stuff because the supply chains were all messed up. And remember the toilet paper drama? Now,
yes.
We are not doing that here. That's not what's happening in this report.
But
that's the last time we had prices that were rising this quickly, three and 4 years ago.
So 3.8% now is where inflation is at. What are we learning about that number? What's behind the number?
So 3.8% sounds like just a number, but you have to remember that 2% is comfortable. We feel good.
That's where we want to be.
Fine when it's 2%. That's the sweet spot in the American economy, and what the Federal Reserve has been trying to get back to. We haven't been back to there since COVID. Mm-hmm. And now it's going in the wrong direction again, 3.8%. This is driven by energy, an energy shock.
So let's talk a little bit about what's contributing to this inflation, right? You have American wage gains that have stalled, 3.6% wage growth. The war with Iran, as you mentioned, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, average price of gas.
$4.50 overnight.
$4.50. We're seeing other consumer products impacted by the war as well. And then this back and forth with the Trump tariffs, because of the Supreme Court decision, the president's still trying to impose some sort of 10% tariff across the board, but having to, battle that. How much can we attribute this 3.8% inflation to the Trump economy? Is this happening based on decisions that the president has made?
Yes. You can safely say this is a war economy. Some of this is what many economists tell me will be temporary bumps from tariffs that will move through. I always say, though, my job as a financial reporter, when people are talking about temporary bumps in inflation, that is still actual real pain for people. I don't mean to laugh, but it's not temporary for people who might be seeing higher prices.
Sure. Even for 2 or 3 months, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
I mean, that's
this is, look, the energy shock and the tariffs, frankly, are basically, as one economist I'm looking at right now says, these are what are called regressive taxes, meaning the less money you have, the more of your bottom line you are paying for these things. Rich people aren't really concerned by this stuff, and high income people who have a lot of stock investments and a lot of equity in their homes,
they can take the hit. It's fine.
And 3.8% is not it's a number that's going in the wrong direction.
And then the 3.8 to 3.6, right? 3.6% wage growth, 3.8% inflation. How worrisome is that? When I'm looking at that, I'm saying, okay, so things are costing more, but I'm also not making enough money to keep up with how much things are costing.
It's a measure of the purchasing power. You have less purchasing power today. The typical home owner, home buyer, home renter, anybody in the country, people have less purchasing power when wages are growing 3.6% and costs are growing 3.8%. So you start making trades. But as we know, before the war with Iran, there were already sticky parts of the budget. Electricity prices were rising. Car insurance prices were rising. New car prices are $50,000. People are stretching out their car payments longer than ever. There are other things in the budget that this gas problem, and now food and airline tickets and home furnishings, I could go on and on, all these things that are rising because the cost of energy is making all of them more expensive, those add on to that baseline of affordability issues that people were already dealing with.
So those are the kind of costs that we're seeing that are eating into these wages.
Yeah.
Have we seen the worst of it?
So I came in here optimistic, but having read
this morning or this room?
This room.
Okay.
But I've been reading a lot of economist notes this morning and talking to a lot of my sources. And, Diane Swank, who's the chief economist at KPMG, says even if everything were fixed tomorrow in the Strait of Hormuz and the war were over, we will be untangling this. This will be a problem in the economy, these prices, into 2027. The chief of Saudi Aramco, which is the state oil company of Saudi Arabia, said the same thing yesterday, that even if you were to fix everything tomorrow, which is not the forecast, we are looking at into 2027 for the echoes of all of this.
So that's the exact opposite of what the president said.
Yes. The president thinks the prices are going to drop quickly. They'll drop dramatically, and that could happen to market. I mean, there's no playbook for this. The playbook was always, here are all your options in Iran, because the risk is the Strait of Hormuz closes and literally the lifeblood of the global economy, oil, gets choked off. And that's exactly what we've seen happen.
The Supreme Court, I mentioned, struck down most of the president's sweeping tariff plan. And companies, though, and consumers, though, they're still kind of feeling the pain of those tariffs. And they've talked about that. Today, co-anchor Craig Melvin sat down with the Nike CEO, Elliott Hill, and he talked about how they are having to pass the cost on to the consumer.
You said recently that tariffs are going to cost Nike about $1.5 billion this fiscal year. Where does that money come from?
Well, it went straight to the government, and we're now in the process of following the guidelines that the government shared, and we're waiting to see what happens in terms of return.
But the $1.5 billion, did it have to
straight off the bottom line? And, we tried to cover some of that with price increases and some other things that we did with our partners on the wholesale side of the business, and then also from manufacturing. But it's tough to cover that all at one time.
Are we seeing that from other companies as well? And is that contributing to now what we're seeing in these numbers?
So a lot of these companies absorbed some of the cost because we've just been talking about it. People can't say they can't afford anything. So companies didn't have a lot of power to raise prices a lot. So they took the hit to the bottom line, which is what Nike did. And now this week, because many of those tariffs were deemed illegal, those illegal tariffs have to be paid back. And so these companies have gone, and the Customs and Border Protection is going to start paying them back this week. Big companies like Nike, I'm less worried about. It's got deep pockets. It's the small guy I worry about. The Christmas lighting company I interviewed out in Utah, where they paid, I think they paid $800,000 in tariffs.
Wow.
Right out of their bank account. And they're really looking forward to getting whatever they can back as this portal opens to get refunds. But for smaller companies, it was more existential, the tariff issue. And I'll tell you, I don't think consumers should hold their breath for a check from any company that they paid more for.
There's not a check showing up.
I don't even know how you would do that. But when I talk to smaller companies, what they tell me is they're so thrilled to be getting the money back because now they can keep all their employees. Or maybe they can hire an extra person to help with new business.
When we're talking about gas prices, the president and his administration have talked about potentially suspending the federal gas tax.
Yeah.
Could that help? What are your sources telling you about what that could do and if it's a smart move?
So Congress has to do it. So the president would have to team up with Congress and get that done, and maybe there would be a move to do that. Georgia has suspended its gas tax temporarily. Lots of states have different taxes. The biggest is in California. It's more than 60 cents. The smallest is in Alaska, I think 6 or 7 cents a gallon. But if you took off all of the taxes, the federal tax is 18 or 19 cents. We were at $2.98 for a gallon of gas before the war. It's at $4.50 now.
Wow.
So that's the perspective. You'd get 18 or 19
in 2
cents
months
back. Right. So it could prevent prices from rising more quickly from here or take a little bit of heat off. It would not return prices to where they were pre-war.
So then how does this course correct if the war with Iran does end? Suddenly, the Strait of Hormuz is suddenly opened back up, let's say. That's obviously ongoing and tenuous, and who knows? Then you have Fed Chair Jerome Powell nearing the end of his term. We know the guy that is coming in is in favor of lowering interest rates, one of the reasons why he's been put in that position in the first place by the president. So what can be done at this point to course correct? And how long would that course correction take?
I think it's an interesting intellectual exercise to say if everything were fixed today and the Strait of Hormuz opened tomorrow, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The more likely scenario here is a stalemate that lasts weeks or months. A stalemate keeps energy prices elevated, keeps the flow of goods through there, helium, semiconductor products, other things that are also important, not just energy, keeps those things bottlenecked. And then you've got a situation where we are not at 2% inflation. We're knocking on the door of 4% inflation again. And that puts the Fed in the position that it might have to raise interest rates.
Go the opposite direction.
So you have this very uncomfortable scenario where people are already very unhappy about higher prices. And the solution for higher prices, assuming the job market stays stable, which is what we saw on Friday, the solution for the higher prices is higher interest rates. And that is an uncomfortable position to be in if you're a middle-class family.
Christine Romans, thank you.
You're welcome.
That is going to do it for us at Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Yasmin Vasugan. We'll be back tomorrow with whatever the day may bring. And if you like what you heard and you saw, press the subscribe button. We'll see you tomorrow.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.